Brewbird. In this video, we're going over the brief but crazy history of rum. So let's go! The first record of fermenting sugarcane was around 350 BC in India. Like many other alcoholic beverages, this fermented sugarcane drink was initially consumed for medicinal purposes. Then in the late 1400s, Christopher Columbus set out on an exploration and came across a group of islands that were perfect for producing sugarcane. They were perfect because they had lots of water and lots of sun. Unfortunately, there weren't a lot of people on these islands to work on these new sugarcane farms. This resulted in the darker side of the history of rum. Slaves were the obvious and easy choice for ensuring that these farms were able to operate. Sugarcane production increased massively, starting on islands such as the Azores, followed by the Canary Islands, and then finally the Caribbean. In the early 1600s, European colonists discovered Barbados on an expedition led by Richard Ligon. This expedition brought sugarcane expertise, farming equipment, slaves, and most importantly, distillation to the Barbados. Like with any industry, there was waste, and it wasn't until the 17th century that they realized that this waste, the sugarcane lying on the beaches, was fermenting and could be distilled. This realization gave rise to the birth of rum. Legend has it that rum was first named Kill Devil due to its high alcoholic strength and disgusting taste. Despite its disgusting taste, it became the drink of choice in the Barbados. The lower classes were stuck drinking rum neat, while the higher classes started to mix rum with lime juice and sugar to make it more palatable. When sugar was being exported to India, some of the sailors took some Indian spices and mixed them with the rum, lime juice, and sugar, and water to create the first punch. As rum developed through South America and the Caribbean, it developed the name rumbustion or rumbustion. Both terms mean upheaval or violent commotion, likely because of the effects the spirit had on those who drank it. Eventually, these names were shortened to rum, the modern-day name for the spirit. Around this time, there were 3,000 colonists living in New England. Despite the better weather, they were completely unaware that the drastic changes in weather made it exceedingly difficult for them to produce wine and beer. Eventually, they resorted to making rum. Why rum? Well, it was much cheaper and a hell of a lot stronger than brandy, so it was a win-win. Rum went on to account for 80% of New England's exports. Rum's association with piracy began when British privateers began trading the valuable commodity. While some of the privateers turned into pirates, their fondness for rum remained. The British Navy adopted rum as its drink of choice in 1655, when the British captured Jamaica and its sugar cane plantations, as well as the Spanish rum distilleries. This allowed them to move away from drinking brandy, which had to be brought in from their arch-enemy at the time, France. Rum was part of daily British naval life until 1970, when it started to be reserved for special occasions. It's rumored that pirates were the first to mix rum with gunpowder to see if it would ignite. If it did not, it meant there was no alcohol. However, this rumor isn't true. Rum and gunpowder started being mixed in England in the 1500s, when the government wanted to levy a higher tax on booze containing higher percentages of alcohol. Alcohol content was determined via a rather crude test. The government would soak a gun pellet with alcohol and try to set fire to the gunpowder. That's why we have gunpowder rum, which has a minimum ABV of 57%, which is the minimum alcoholic percentage needed for the gunpowder to ignite. By 1775, the average American consumed 16 liters of rum per year. Since rum was having an insane impact on the economy, England worked to introduce a tax on molasses coming from French colonized islands, which was New England's primary source of molasses. This resulted in the Sugar Act in 1764, where a tax was introduced on molasses. As molasses became more difficult and expensive to get a hold of, the newly immigrated Irish and Scottish took advantage by going inland, where there was a lot of grain. The use of grain as a raw material for spirit production resulted in an increase in whiskey consumption and a decrease in rum consumption. The molasses tax was one of the tipping points for the start of the Revolutionary War. On October 19, 1781, British General Charles Cornwallis surrendered his army to General George Washington and gave up any chance of winning the Revolutionary War. This meant that the importation of molasses returned to normal, meaning that rum was back, baby. Legend has it that in 1805, the Battle of Trafalgar resulted in the death of Admiral Nelson, who was killed by a French sniper. The Navy preserved his body by putting it into a cognac cask. During the voyage, the sailors were drinking out of the cask, and they got the cognac mixed up with the rum cask. When they got back to England, they discovered that the cognac cask with Nelson's body was bone dry, meaning that the sailors had been literally drinking Nelson's blood. That's how rum got its nickname Nelson's Blood, supposedly. However, the main association between rum and sailors came from the 1850s, since sailors would have a tot of rum every day at noon. A tot being 1/8 of a pint, approximately 60 milliliters. It wasn't until 1970 that they stopped this practice. Rum made its mark in the United States during Prohibition, which was from 1920 to 1933, due to rum runners and bootleggers. The illegal rum trade became such a big problem in the United States that they reached out to the leader of the controlling nation at the time, the United Kingdom, to ask them to put a stop to it, resulting in this amazing quote from Winston Churchill. "Prohibition is the front of the whole history of mankind," basically telling the United States to bugger off. The United Kingdom's stance on alcohol helped the illegal rum trade flourish in the United States. You may have heard of the term rum row, which refers to floating rum warehouses that were situated just outside the maritime border of the United States. These floating ships became the drop-off and pick-up points of rum, creating a wall across the horizon which at night was often described as a floating city because of all the lights. One of the most famous rum runners was William McCoy, who spent the first 3 years of the Prohibition smuggling whiskey and rum to Florida. When he was finally captured by Coast Guards, he had a whole fleet of ships that each made 15,000 pounds per trip. That's 650,000 pounds in today's money. What a hustler. Most people today associate rum as a cocktail spirit since it forms the base for some of the most flavorsome and famous cocktails. The most famous style of rum cocktails are tiki drinks, which can be traced back to the 1930s when a man named Don Beach opened the first tiki bar in Hollywood, California. Don was inspired by the Polynesian culture that he had experienced while traveling in the South Pacific. Fun fact, tiki translates to the creation or the creator of man. In total, UK consumers bought 35 million bottles of rum in the last recorded 12 months up to June 2019. This is worth £1 billion, which is approximately 1/3 of all sales taking place in pubs, bars, and restaurants in the UK. Well, I hope you learned a little bit more about the interesting history of rum. In the meantime, please support the channel by giving this video a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button for more distilling and brewing videos. This is Brewbird, sending good vibes your way. I'll see you next time!